weirdness with the sound. So, but okay, I wanted to thank you. I wasn't entirely sure how much to share today. As you know, Help Me Connect is still in a little bit of a transition period, and I know that there have been a lot of questions recently about what's going on because of a lack of information with us sharing. I think there's always this opportunity for people to be misled and to ask questions. And so I really appreciate this time, even though it's not quite live yet, to be able to share where we've been, where we are, and where we're headed with Help Me Connect. Today, I am going to share a little bit about where it came from. I've been involved with this since 2012. And so to me, there's some history that I think is very helpful with just highlighting why we even started doing this. Where did it come from? And so I'll talk a bit about where we're currently at, what our expected launch date is, some of the expected future modifications that we will be putting into place in 2021 and 2022. I'll give you a tour of what it looks like live right now, and then have an opportunity to have some questions. And just so you know, Atande, when I went live to show this, I did lose my chats. So I'm not sure if I'm going to screw something up. So if you want to let me know on the chats, then I won't try to figure that out right now.
Can do.
Okay, thank you. And so the evolution of Help Me Connect is super important to me. As I said, I've been in this maybe a little too long. If somebody else had recently come in as the new Help Me Connect coordinator and didn't have some of this history, I highly doubt any of this would be shared with you because there just wouldn't have been that historical context. But to me, there's still a lot of importance as to why we got to this. In 2012, it became very apparent that we had a very successful Help Me Grow central access intake referral system. And so, as you know, if children are experiencing any concerns developmentally or social emotionally, we have a Help Me Grow referral system where early on we were seeing, 1,000 referrals come into to that portal a year. And last year we had over 25,000 that came into just the Help Me Grow central access point. And that, again, remember, is just for children that are experiencing some kind of a delay, some kind of a concern where they're asking for early childhood special education to take a closer look, to do an assessment or an evaluation. Because of that, what we learned is so many of those referrals were coming in specific to one type of program or service. And families oftentimes were looking for something else, and they just didn't know it. They didn't realize it. It became more of a central access point for families to find out where early childhood screening was in their community, or where they could go for some of the school readiness programs. And so what we found was that there wasn't a great way through the Help Me Grow central intake part to connect them to these other services. Right about the same time, and I know I've seen this on your list of questions as well, we were hearing very loudly from primary health care that they're making referrals to Help Me Grow and they're not finding anything out. And there is this follow-up, there is this connection after a referral to Help Me Grow that was very frustrating for primary health care to not know what happened next. And so one of the things we've always been talking about is that closing the feedback loop, some sort of a follow-up mechanism so that we could not only connect with families, but then reassure whoever the referring party was that something happened. There were connections to multiple different areas of early childhood services. Right also at about the same time, we started hearing about this national Help Me Grow model. And that's where I lose people because it's very ironic that we had a Help Me Grow. And there was also something with the exact same name nationally called Help Me Grow, and it was very different. So I won't tease that out too much more, but if you look at the little logo, the system model that's on the right of this, the National Help Me Grow model had 4 components. There was a central access point that was complemented by family and community outreach, child healthcare provider outreach, and data collection and analysis. And we really started diving in from a 3-state agency perspective to find out more about this national model and how it was working in other states. And so what the piece that I will be focusing on, and you'll learn a little bit more about this because of the history, is Help Me Connect is a central access point. That is where we have been working so hard to actually put together all 4 components, but we've ended up concentrating solely on this central access point feature. So all of these little features that began in 2012 really led us to explore what would a central access point look like in Minnesota for all of early childhood services and programs, so that families didn't have to contact one in order to find out about school readiness, one in order to find out about childcare, one, etc. So I've shared this recently in another webinar, and so if you've seen this, no worries, I'm not going to duplicate what you've probably already seen. But you can see we started in 2012. We had a statewide summit with a lot of our local partners, state staff, tribal liaisons to really explore that national Help Me Grow model. We had statewide work groups in each of those 4 component areas to provide us with recommendations about what it could look like in Minnesota and what we should be doing next. We had some tribal summits, specifically with all 11 of the tribal nations, where we were trying to at least bring partners to the table to say, how can we move forward with this, with having our partners involved at the very beginning, instead of us putting a lot of it together and then reaching out to many of our partners. We've learned enough working in state agencies that is not the preferred way of continuing business. We had 3 unsuccessful attempts at legislative and federal grant funding. 3 at legislative and then several federal grant applications that we wrote that were not funded in order to move forward with all 4 of those components for that national Help Me Grow model. All were unsuccessful. It got to a point at late 2017 where we had to look at existing funding and existing resources and make some decisions. Are we just going to can the whole process that we've spent several years working on, or are we going to start moving forward slowly? So as we're moving into what we're going to talk about today, we obviously started moving into it slowly. So in the evolution in about 2018, we decided, all right, let's let the other 3 components sit and take a break. And we're going to focus on the development of a central access point, specifically for all types of early childhood services and programs that are available prenatally up to age 8. We took a look at some of whatever other existing navigation models that were already in place in Minnesota. The 2 that I will call out is that we took a look at what the United Way 211 was providing already for navigation across the state. And we looked at minnesotahelp.info. Those of you that may or may not be familiar with minnesotahelp.info, it's kind of grown into a beast recently, but its original mission was to do the senior linkage line. It was to support seniors in Minnesota so that they had a one-stop shop in order to be able to connect with the different types of services that would be available. When we first started exploring that connection with minnesotahelp.info, they also have a kids navigator, they had the disability linkage line, they've had multiple and early childhood special child, oh my gosh, I can't even say it, children with special health needs navigator. So they were housing a whole bunch of data that were very specific to multiple other areas other than the senior linkage line. So if you haven't taken a look at minnesotahelp.info, if you go and take a look, you'll see what we were exploring at that point. There was no logical one place that was already capable and ready with a robust early childhood data system to take over this one-stop shop, this central access point for early childhood resources at this time. And so no matter what, we were looking at expanding an existing database with more of the robust early childhood resources. We wanted to focus on our area of state agency programs and services, knowing that there is a ton out there at the local community level. But where we were focusing was we had lists of all of the different prenatal and early childhood programs that fell underneath DHS and all that fell under health and all that fell under education. So everything from family home visiting to the PSAP program, to WIC, to ECFE, ECSE. And so by having our hands on all of these lists of programs and services and providers that we were providing from a state level, that's where we started populating our data, is making sure that we had a system that actually reflected as much as we already knew from the state agency level. It was also at this point where we had to make a decision. Who are we creating this for? And that was a decision that could have gone two ways. Are we creating this for families? Are we creating this for providers? When we talked a bit about our audiences that we were missing, it became obvious that an electronic navigator might not be the most friendly place for many of our families to start. But we knew they had somebody in their lives that they probably trusted at a provider level. It could be a child care provider. It could be a family practice doc. It could be one of their school readiness teachers. And so we really focused our next steps on creating a system that we were going to market to early childhood providers. And I know that this was a question that has come up with your group. It doesn't mean that families aren't welcome to come and to look at Help Me Connect and to identify services specifically. But what that really is targeting is our marketing, and our next steps for an initial public launch will be very, very directed at the early childhood providers across the state. But there's nothing on the site that says this isn't family friendly. This isn't where families are welcome to start their exploration as well. I think one of the things we will look at in the future is whether or not we need to have a different family friendly facing page. But that is probably still a couple of years out for us to be able to learn a little bit more about how our current page is actually working and looking for the providers. And it really wasn't until about probably January of 2020, that we changed the name. And I know that threw people off, because for years we've been talking about this thing called Expanded Help Me Grow. And then all of a sudden the words Help Me Connect got out there and they threw everybody off. What is Help Me Connect? Is that different? What about everything you've been talking about for expanding Help Me Grow? And so I wanted to make sure that everybody on this call knew that that was a very deliberate effort, but it wasn't something we went big fanfare and told people about. It got confusing for us to keep talking about Expanded Help Me Grow. And so we gave it a new name, and that early childhood navigator now we refer to as Help Me Connect. I'll talk just one more slide here on the evolution, and then I can see if there's anything sitting in the chat regarding the history, if you want me to answer questions specific about that. You can see in early 2018, 2019, and this is really where we had an opportunity using family home visiting funding to be able to support an initial contract with the Minnesota Board on Aging, who is the overseeing body for MinnesotaHelp.info. The initial little pot of funding was one-time funding through our family home visiting program that was able to set up this contract so we could start talking about expanding the MinnesotaHelp.info database, creating a front-facing page that would serve as this one-stop shop for providers and families. It also allowed us to get out into the community and hold a couple of rounds of community provider testing. The first one was in the winter of 2018, 2019, where we gave them essentially pieces of paper that had ideas on it and said, what do you think? Tell us what you are currently working with families on so that we know what needs to be on this site. And then the second one was the winter of 2019 and 2020, where they went back out with an actual test website. And they said, click around. Tell us what's natural. Tell us what's not working. We had so much feedback after that second round of community provider testing that it literally has taken us 6 months to 9 months to really implement all of that provider testing. We are currently sitting at one of our peak opportunities with the preschool development grant funding. Minnesota was fortunate enough, it began in January of 2020, to include the Help Me Connect navigator and the expansion of this navigator into our preschool development grant funding. So for the next, well, we have 2 more years left, but for a 3-year period of time, we had dedicated staff, which is myself. We have dedicated funding to provide technical updates and transitions to hopefully achieve sustainability by the time December 2022 rolls around, which is the end of the preschool development grant funding. So we were given an adrenaline boost of something that was limping along for 4 or 5 years to kick it into high gear, to get a site live, to be able to pilot it and to test it with those community hubs that I'll talk a little bit more about that I know Laura already mentioned. So I'm not going to go into any more detail on the rest of this because it's going to come up naturally on the rest of the presentation, but are there any specific questions on the history that I should be responding to at this point?
Sean, I'm not seeing any in the chat so far.
Great.
People are also welcome to ask them, just come off mic and ask. Otherwise,
okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, that's great. I go through it so fast, and I just want to make sure that if there's something appropriate that I can at least talk it through. So our current status. So we came up with this mission. Help Me Connect builds pathways to make it easier for Minnesota families to navigate the complex systems and to connect with the resources they need to be healthy and safe. However, during the preschool development planning grant, we had a lot of community engagement opportunities as well. And I loved this quote. It was from a school district personnel. There just needs to be something developed that's specifically targeted to families on how to get resources they're seeking. Ideally, it would be a clearinghouse. What are the contacts needed? And then the family would be passed to the next tier for support. Again, the one thing is the passing, but then the Hermantown Proctor person didn't say it, but making sure that there's the follow-up component is another piece to this. But so our current status was to put this out, was to have some kind of a navigation system, some kind of an electronic clearinghouse that providers and families prenatal up to age 8 would have a one-stop shop where they could start, where they could find resources and they could drill down specific to where their geography is having them live. So where we are right now with the current status, as I've already mentioned, we have a live site that we have not publicized. It went live middle of September, so we could start this technical transition. And unfortunately, anytime I have an experience with a technical transition, it does not go smoothly. So there was 2 technical vendors that created Help Me Connect, but now we are transitioning it to the state agency Minute platform. And those of you that have worked with Minute, you may have multiple different reactions about that. Our reaction was, okay, it's now going to fall into the scheme of a state agency checklist. And we really were hoping to have this be something that we're going to be able to boost and get moving fast. So right now, our main holdup is this transition. Ideally, the transition will help with sustainability. We will have Minute staff either at Minute Central or Minute through the Department of Health that will be able to really focus on Help Me Connect to make changes. But until that transition happens, we're sitting in a point of flux where we can't make any changes to a live website. And that's been quite frustrating for the last couple of months. We've been working hard to identify missing resources in the Navigator. Every single time we share the website with somebody, we get a lot of great feedback. The majority of it is, I can't find this. This isn't in there. And absolutely what we need. We knew when we launched this that it was not going to have everything that our providers and families were looking for. And our most important goal was to be able to hear back from providers and families about what's missing so we can get it in there. We found in the last 6 months or so that we needed to do a lot of work on accessibility standards. There are a lot of requirements working with the state agency to make sure that the Disabilities Act accessibility standards are met. We've been working hard to create provider marketing and outreach plans, which is something that I know you will be invited back to. We will have some live webinars. We will be putting information into electronic newsletters, handouts. There will be a couple of brief tutorial videos that will go on YouTube that really show what is Help Me Connect, how to use it. And then, as already mentioned, we will be working to set up those community hub pilot sites that will be starting. I saw one of your questions is when will they be announced? And I am not the overall person on this, but I can tell you that we are hoping for early January that they will be announced. And once they are announced, we will be really working closely with them to make sure they know how to use Help Me Connect and then to help us make it better to meet their needs. The idea is that for the next 2 years, anybody will be able to use Help Me Connect, but it's these pilot sites that will be our information strands to know what's working well and how can we build additional features into it. Sorry, went too fast there. So when it goes live in hopefully January, I'm saying early 2021, just because I've learned my lesson. So when it does go live, what will it be? It will be an electronic early childhood services navigator for providers and families, but we will be marketing it to providers initially. It's mobile friendly. You're able to search by content area and filter by location. And I'm going to show you some of these a little bit more, but the one handout that had been included for you is shown on the right side of this slide. Content area are those 11 boxes. And so, but there's also a main search feature, a general search feature where you don't have to click on a box. You can just put in search words. One of our lessons learned is to remind everybody that it is not Google. We did not have the billions of dollars to make our search engine work like Google. And that unfortunately is the expectation, that it will capture spelling errors, that it will find something close to that word, maybe if it doesn't completely match. And so we have some information to share broadly with people about what to expect when they go to Help Me Connect. There's an area where providers and families can create a sign-in. They can save their favorites so they don't have to go back in and recreate what they're searching for. There's an opportunity for all of the services and programs already listed to say, hey, this is wrong. This is what you need to fix. And there's going to be an area where people can say, you're missing this. This needs to be added to Help Me Connect. So before I show you it, I want to tell you just briefly about the future modifications, where we're headed. Once it goes live and we have the transitions, I already have a long list of other early childhood programs and services that we need to add. One of the other areas is that we're missing community level services. I know that. I know that there are homegrown services for families that don't fall underneath the purview of something that may have originated out of a state agency. And I'm not, silly enough to think that there isn't a whole bunch that we haven't missed. And so that's where we're going to need our provider input, our support from those community level hubs. Tell us what we are missing. We're also going to add a section under each of those 11 categories for helpful resources. There's a lot already created out there that isn't necessarily pointing to a program, but it's pointing to a resource, and that we want to make sure that even if it's not something that's pointing to a program, that we at least give somebody enough information so they can do a little bit of searching, of looking at other websites that might be appropriate. One of our primary focuses is the Tribal Nations Connections. We had a previous webinar in September that I know is still out there as an opportunity for you to watch if you didn't already, where we talked quite a bit about this. So I wasn't going to go into great detail, but we started early. We started at the beginning with the relationship with tribal nations. It's ongoing. One of the nice things about the Preschool Development Grant is that we have a tribal nations liaison. We have a consultant working with the grant specific for assuring that we have partnerships, we have improvement processes involved. And so it's a wonderful opportunity through that PDG grant for us to continue that work for Help Me Connect. We will be looking at continuous community and provider engagement opportunities so that we can improve the navigator. We will be translating it into other languages. The one thing that I know was one of your questions is, what to expect on that. We had Google Translate working behind the scene, and we found out pretty quickly that that is not really an accurate translation to rely on. We also found out that the minute somebody uses Google Translate, that all of the American Disabilities Act accessibility standards go away. It pretty much negates all of the ADA accessibility. So we removed it, we took it off. We are going to be working on having that manual translation process so that when somebody comes to the site, they can click on a drop down that says viewing this in Spanish, and the entire site is going to then morph into Spanish, as well as probably Hmong, Somali. Another one that we hear quite a bit about is Karen, but I think that that is definitely something we will be looking to the hubs to help us with knowing where to start on that. I would envision Spanish will be the first one. And it will be a laborious process where we will go page by page. And it will probably start at the top layer and move down. We will be adding an electronic screening portal access for providers and families. So there is an electronic screening system that we're currently piloting. The idea is to have an opportunity for really anybody that wants to be able to complete ASQ3 or an ASQ SE2, that they can come to Help Me Connect and they can create their own profile and log in and actually complete one of the timely screening intervals. We have a lot to figure out on that, but it's enough where I know I wanted to at least be able to share that I know all of the family home visiting programs are using these instruments as well. So one of the important pieces is to assure that if somebody does come to Help Me Connect to complete a screen, that it's not seen as that periodic screening opportunity, that we are then connecting them with programs that would offer the periodic screening opportunity. We don't want Help Me to Connect to be periodic screening. We want it to be a one-time visit, and then we will connect them to family home visiting. We will connect them to the follow-along program, early childhood screening, primary care. Primary care is another one. It's not an opportunity to duplicate, but to provide an access, to open access to it. And we will be really focusing on our community of practice with those hub pilot sites. There's a lot to learn, and we're very excited to have them come on board. The one thing that I'll just talk before we head into the tour is we will be developing a referral mechanism. We are calling it a resource connector. We need to start small. So ironically, one of the programs that we've talked about so much since the start of this is having this be a potential resource connector to all of the family home visiting programs across the state. We haven't moved forward from just that initial thought as far as putting anything into practice or talking about what it would look like yet. But the idea is that we need to start, there's no way we could have every single program or service that shows up in Help Me Connect and have a successful referral process. So we need to start with such as family home visiting. So if a family or a provider comes to Help Me Connect, they are able to identify a family home visiting program that they would like to then move to the next step with a referral or an enrollment that they can complete a very brief referral form. And we have behind the scenes set up the information and the collaboration with all of the family home visiting programs across the state to accept those referrals. So right now this happens for the Help Me Grow referrals. It also happens for the follow along program referrals. There is one place where enough information is gathered initially, and then it shoots out the referral to the local program. The local program then is responsible for connecting with the family. And the idea behind this is that we will have built that collaboration with all of the family home visiting programs so that they will be able to accept referrals coming through Help Me Connect, and that they will be able to log in, accept those referrals, and to also put in some minimal information about what happened. Did you get a hold of the family? We don't want to create a whole new data system where we are duplicating your work, but we want to create a data system where we are able to follow back up enough to know, yep, they did get a hold of the family. And I don't even know what the rest of the data could potentially look like. But if we don't, I think our original plan was to start with, 4 or 5. Have each state agency say this is a priority. We want to start with connecting families to the Parent Support Outreach Program under DHS or early childhood mental health providers. For the Department of Health, it's definitely been WIC and family home visiting. And for the Department of Education, early childhood screening, Head Start. These are the programs that we've heard elevated up as let's start with developing a collaboration with these local providers to be able to accept referrals that would come through Help Me Connect. So I know that's a lot of very future talk, but just so you know where we are headed to a referral mechanism, and it's probably going to be something that we will start quite small with. And I know family home visiting has been one of the top programs that we will be looking at closer. So Help Me Connect tour. I have a bunch of slides after this where I'm gonna actually just show you what these look like. Just because I know if you don't have an opportunity to go and click around and Help Me Connect before the site does come down, at least these are on a slide deck for you, so you can look at these later. There are 11 categories currently sitting on Help Me Connect. That doesn't mean that there will always be 11, but we're starting with 11. So you can see we have healthy development and screening, and then I have a list of which programs currently have additional information and have connections to the specific providers and services across the state. So healthy development and screening, developmental and behavioral concerns. You can see what we then include there. Disability services and resources. Again, I'm going through this fairly quickly so I can actually get to the live site. We did find that in some situations, it's just better, even though it's not a specific point to a service or a program, it's a link. So this just goes right to minnesotahelp.info. Early learning and childcare goes right to Parent Aware instead of us recreating what somebody had already existed. Family well-being and mental health. Tribal and American Indian families. It came out very, very clear from day one that this is an important category only in of itself, but a lot to learn about how to be able to work, jointly, collaboratively with tribal nations, but also to be able to serve families, living off tribal nation lands. Additional caregiving and community support. One of our most recent additions to our planning team is a dad. I'm an African-American dad, which makes it even better because we added a section specifically for fathers when he joined. Another one that recently left our planning team was a grandma. Very, very passionate because grandmas are taking care of a lot of their grandchildren. And so, and it's coming up more and more often. So this is an area where you could probably have put a miscellaneous on it, but making it be additional caregiving was our title. Dental care, you may wonder, I've already been asked this, why did you separate this out? Because it always gets hidden. And it's one of the key programs that we know families are looking for. So we may learn that it didn't need to be so blatant, but it's there. Basic needs. We all know that if a family doesn't know where they're going to live next month, their child's development is going to fall on the lowest end of their priority list. So it's definitely something where we are connecting to other services and resources that are available that were already populated in minnesotahelp.info. Legal services is another one. And then we had the wonderful opportunity of having a pandemic come up right about the same time we were trying to go live. And everybody started saying, well, don't you have anything on there for COVID? So we added a new section quite late in the game called Peacetime Emergency Resources, with the unfortunate thought that once COVID-19 leaves, maybe something else will come and we will need to modify this section for whatever the next peacetime emergency might be. So right now, this includes just a huge compilation of resources and links to other stuff that's already out there, plus a lot of the already, the little titles that we have in many of the other 10 categories. You can kind of click here and find a whole bunch of other stuff. So with our remaining time here, and I see we have about 10 minutes, I'm just going to show you a little bit of the actual website itself. I'm going to show you a little bit about the homepage, what it looks like at the second and third level tiers, program details page, and then I'll show you a little bit about what it looks like to log in and to look at favorites. And then I know that doesn't leave much for questions. So let me see now about sharing my screen. All right, are you seeing the Help Me Connect website now? All right, I'm seeing Laura's head nod. Going with it, Laura. So this is what the homepage looks like. And yes, here is the URL. So it will remain this URL when it goes live again, helpmeconnectmn.org. That handout that I gave you guys in preparation for this does not include the URL on there yet. I removed it specifically for this because I just don't want that to get in the hands of people at this point. So it is still live. I'm hoping by the end of the week it will be down. So when you go here, it's going to say it's under construction. Expect a live launch in early 2021. But right now, please, go ahead, feel free to click around. I would just ask you to not send this out widely and share it. As you can see, we have in this front end here, we have little icons up at the top that are going to each of these 11 big boxes as well. We have the general search feature. So if we put in family home visiting, if I can spell, oh my goodness, there we go. It's going to automatically pop up with our listing from the Department of Health. That's where we currently get our data. It's going to list all of the family home visiting agencies that we currently have in our data system. So that's one way. The sign in is, which I will show you in a sec. It's where you can create your favorites. And so you can create your own login so that you can come back and sign in and you can retrieve any of your previous searches that you chose to save. So we have also in the footer area, we will be making this more prominent because it's hidden right now, but we want to have in prominent places throughout the site, areas where you can click on our email address to tell us what we are missing. So you can even start that now. Feel free, go ahead and use the Help Me Connect email address to tell us what we are missing. But my goal is when you click on any of these big 11 categories, we're going to have something prominent up here that says, tell us what we're missing. So we can make sure and make modifications as needed. So I'm sitting right now in the Healthy Development and Screening, the second level tier page. And this is listing everything that I already had shown you. What is included under each one of these 11 tiles is its own little grouping of what we've determined as healthy development and screening programs, at least to start with. So you can see under Healthy Development and Screening, we have ECFE, early childhood screening, family home visiting, follow along, and we also have healthcare, which goes also to child and teen checkup. I'm sure that there are others, and some of the others that you may be looking for are probably falling underneath early learning and child care. And so I think this is definitely something we will be learning a bit about, is what needs to show up in more than one category. So right now, it's definitely something where here is where you're going to find Early Head Start and Head Start. And that may have been one of the first things you may have been looking for, because we know that there's a lot of healthy development and screening that goes on in Early Head Start, Head Start. So this is a second level page. If we click on, I will do early childhood screening. Well, no, we have family home visiting in the room. So let's do family home visiting. So this is a third level page where we are able to see the full list of all of the different service providers that are doing family home visiting in our data system. So again, if we're missing some, this is an opportunity where we will be connecting with the Department of Health annually, if not more often, to make sure that we are getting any updates for who the family home visiting providers are across the state. This is where I can put in my home address and I can find out who's close to me. And so it starts with whoever is closest to my home address and it moves farther and farther away. It's still going to show all of the family home visiting providers we have in the system, but it's showing me the one that is as close to me here as possible. The one thing as I'm seeing this right now is Anoka County, because of the distance, is 15 miles away from me. But Anoka County is where I live. And in my, I have enough knowledge about family home visiting. That probably would have been where I would have started. But the closest one to my home is Headway Emotional Health. And so if you click on Headway Emotional Health, it gives some immediate information about what family home visiting programs are. We are in a process right now where we are updating this language. This does not fit specifically for statewide family home visiting programs any longer. We know that it is oftentimes being served, families are being served with their child ages 5 or greater in some situations. But you can see here specific for Headway Emotional Health. This is where we are able to realize that this is a family spirit model. And so one of the things we will be looking at closely on any modifications is being able to call out the different types of models that are being used within that family home visiting agency. You can see here, we're able to see where it's located. We have contact information. We are able to see if there's anything else that are any other locations, if there's any other services provided there. So this is the program details page. This is where if I wanted to save this to my favorites, I have already signed in. I'm going to actually sign in now just so you can see it. I have already created an account. If I can remember everything. So I now, no, I don't need to do that. I now can go into my favorites. And last night I went in here and I created something that showed me all of the early childhood types of programs in the Centennial School District, which is where I live. I put in Early Head Start. I put in the school readiness. I put in ECFE. I put in early childhood screening. Say if I wanted to have this be more of a Lionel Lakes or Anoka County type of a search, I could add that Headway Emotional Health to this. So I could save this to my favorites. Oh, I am already logged in, sorry. This is where we get to learn about little glitches, is when we always try to do something else. So if I go back, I can click on Headway Emotional Health. I can say save to my favorites. It's going to ask me, do I want to create a new favorites list, or do I want to add to an existing favorites list? Say I want to add it, that Centennial School District list, so that I already have kind of in the back of my head who the closest family home visiting provider is. Granted, keeping in mind that it's going to be appropriate to know which models they're providing at that location. So I'm saving it. And if I go back into my favorites list and I open this up again, I now have Headway Emotional Health now at the bottom of my favorites list. So that is definitely one of the little features that we wanted to make sure is probably where we're going to be expanding to have referral. That referral resource connector involved there. So as providers and families come and they create their favorites, there's also going to be a referral mechanism that's going to be connected through this. But we've started it small with the My Favorites section, just to keep track of searches that anybody may want to keep on hand. So if I go back, I know that was a really quick tour. Please, like I said, I'm giving you guys permission to go in and click around. There are many of these pieces of information that you're able to just click around a little bit and to see how things work. Chances are, if you do go in and you create a sign in at this point in time, it will probably need to be signed out and then you will have to start over. So I would not recommend you do anything quite drastic, like start creating your own profile at this point or anything. But so, okay, I will be quiet. That was so quick. I'm sorry. And I wanted to give some scenarios. I know some of the scenarios we've thought about in the past is from that primary healthcare lens, and making sure that doctors and nurses don't feel like they have to know everything in their community, and that this is something that they would be able to connect with, that would be updated, accessible for themselves and their families in order to be able to access up-to-date information about what's available. Questions? What do we have? 2 minutes? 2 minutes.
John, thank you so much for that quick demo. I had a question about the anticipated timeline for implementing the referral system.
Yes. I would say it's probably, I'm so reluctant to give timelines right now. We are currently looking at if we can buy something off the shelf instead of having to create it. And that's what we want to do. We want to buy something that's already being used in another state. We're looking at a system that's being used in California right now. And if it's something we do get to buy off the shelf, I would expect by summer that we will have had enough time to buy it, to get it up and running, to start testing it with the hubs to see how it works. but I'm a little worried about giving a concrete time frame on that. So like I said, we have to pick our top couple of programs. If we were to pick family home visiting, that would obviously be one of the first ones that we would then be developing a relationship with the various family home visiting agencies across the state, because we need for them to accept referrals. We need for them to be able to want to be a part of this process. There's a lot of family home visiting agencies. It might be, and I'm making this up, but it might be easier for us to pick something that has a smaller group to see how it works. Early childhood mental health providers, that's a smaller group. And that's definitely one that is on our radar right now. But Head Starts or early childhood screening or anything like that, we're dealing with the same numbers as family home visiting agencies, if not more. So that's a way of not answering your question.
No, thank you. No, that's clarifying to at least know sort of where y'all are thinking and how you're thinking about starting and what specific field might be the first, just because of the size and trying to test it out. Laura asked a question about whether you know if the coalition's home visiting directory was used to identify some of those home visiting programs that are already in.
No.
Okay.
I can check.
Okay.
I also see in the chats that it looks like, for Headway, that they do have other models. This is absolutely what we need to hear. And so ironically, the family home visiting list right now, our list of programs and agencies is under review. It hit its annual check-in last week. So I just connected with the Department of Health Family Home Visiting Group to say, okay, we need to make sure all the data in here is accurate. How can you help support this? And I shared with them what we currently have. So I appreciate hearing from Jillian, because it's definitely something that I'm going to want you guys to tell us about if something isn't accurate, but I can check to see where we got the original list from, because we probably got the original list over a year ago and I don't know the origination of it.
Okay. So I'll just say this, and then anyone else with a question can throw it in the chat prior to closing. I would offer, one, the coalition, we do have a home visiting directory on our website that we've had funding to update for we created it 2 years ago and then updated it this year, and then I will be updating it again early 2021. That has a lot of, I just finished the update in May, so that has a lot of recent information about existing programs, types of programs, eligibility, all of that stuff. And I can send you the link very easily, Sean. The other thing I would just offer is the Home Visiting Coalition as a partner in this work. I think MDH is a great entity to go to, and also we have our listserv, we have other ways of communicating. And so if there's a coordinated push that you want to do around, hey, everybody go look at your programs in the Help Me Connect, on the Help Me Connect website, and make sure it's up to date, and email these folks if you need to update it. Like, we can send that kind of mass communication out so folks have their eyes on it and are able to do it kind of all at once. So, and other ways too, but we're definitely here to support that. I guess Laura said the same thing, but we're definitely here to support that work, and that's kind of that's a big part of our role as a coalition. And so I understand that obviously there are multiple entities and multiple agencies that can support, but that is a big part of what we do.
Well, keeping in mind that nobody has been in my position yet, it's brand new, and the majority of the decisions that were being made was coming from people that only knew what they knew. And so these types of connections are extremely helpful, because for all I know, the data may have come from the coalition in the past and I didn't know it, but I don't think so. I feel like it came from a Department of Health list. And so just to know that there's probably more accurate information sitting somewhere else that we can glean from, and a partnership is extremely helpful. So I would encourage anybody to continue to connect with me. It's a big ask to come in and to connect dots with agencies, organizations that maybe we haven't talked to before. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We have about let's say maybe time for one more question. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to share or any feedback so far. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. So I will just say again, thank you so much to Sean for showing this to us. As soon as we know that the site is live, we will share that information and whatever other sort of directive that you may have around making sure programs are up to date or on the website, or any questions that come through any of that. We're very, very much willing to share that information and get information about our programs available across the state and to multiple providers. So I just want to thank you again for coming and joining us. It was super informative. And I want to thank everybody here also for joining. And you can let me know, let Laura know, let Sean know, let Kathy know, whoever know, if you have any questions or any follow-up that you'd like to do. So we're really looking forward to it. And I wish everybody just like a continued safety and healthiness and happiness through the end of 2020 and into the new year. But we will be in touch about the new dates and all of those things for next year soon. So thank you.
Thank you.